freaking back. I don't even know what that means. And we're back with intro music. That's all that matters. But thank you huge shout out to Athena Perez and her unnamed composer associate who helped put this together. There's actually a second one, and maybe we'll share that one. But can't say enough thank yous. I think I had, when putting this together, said something really corny as far as like the creative of, I don't know, I wanted like determined optimism or optimistic determinism, something like that. But anyway, we're rolling here, and thank you so much for that. So let's get into it. And man, this is a funny one. I have it's been 16 days I think since I've recorded anything, and don't know if I really have a reason for that. I haven't thought about it a ton. You know, it could be a thing. I could say a bunch of stuff. Been really preoccupied with some other projects around the house, other things I've been working on. And I'm not going to say I didn't have time to do it, because of course, you know, it's a 10-minute, 15-minute podcast. Of course I have time. It's an insane thing to tell yourself. But I don't know. And maybe my interest waned. Maybe it was just, who knows? I haven't thought about it a ton. Maybe we'll think about it here, but not too much of why I just stopped. I think I just missed one day for whatever reason, got focused on something, and then, you know, it's easy to let the habit of, you know, slipping can become a habit, just like committing can become a habit. But so I don't have a good reason for that. But I did get some really sweet messages from friends and a couple of people who listen that they missed it, and it was just very feel good. But also, you know, I want to keep putting it out there, not just for that, but in earnest, because I think there's something valuable to it. So anyway, let's move on from that. We're here. We're back on the horse. And one other thing that made me think is I have a friend recently. She's gotten back into horse riding, and she's a good rider. Is that what you call them? Equestrians? I don't know. Doing all the little things, the jumping, the I don't know what you call it when they walk sideways. That's pretty bizarre. And the cantering and the galloping and the trotting, all that stuff. Really cool. But she fell off the horse. That's scary as fuck. And I can see why they have that phrase. Well, not really. I probably really won't understand until I fall off a horse. But it's a long way to fall. She's okay. Everybody's okay. You know, stuff happens. That's kind of the nature of that. But anyway, it just made me think about getting back on the horse. And that got me thinking about something else. This is a topic I wanted to talk about a long time ago. And losing your black belt. And this came to the forefront of my mind right now because in CrossFit world, it's the competitive part of the season. There's an online competition. Those of you that know. Those of you that kind of know don't need to know the details unless you really want to. But there's an online competition and there's another online qualifier, and that qualifies you to various in-person events depending on your division and things like that. And it's an interesting time of year because one of the big things that CrossFit puts out there is it's like a time to test yourself and measure yourself versus yourself and all that kind of stuff. And I hear people comparing their scores with themselves and each other and looking back on their scores. And, you know, I'm older now than when I used to compete. I want to say not competitively because I'm always competitive, like in my head, compete aggressively. And I have a lot of friends similarly aging up, and I hear them compare themselves to them past selves or say like, this is my new 50-year-old PR. Or 40-year-old PR. And it's, you know, it's lighter than their lifetime PR. They're all different types of PRs. I don't know how I feel about all that. There's value to it. One of the things I do, though, is every once in a while, it's like, there has to be some standard. I don't know if there has to be. But I think it's useful to have some standard in your life that doesn't, the goalpost doesn't freaking move. So the other day we were in class, and there was a workout that popped up, and it's a classic CrossFit benchmark workout. CrossFit will retest workouts once in a while so you can gauge yourself. And there's a million reasons, you know, it's not a world ender if you don't improve on a workout when you retest it. There's a million reasons why you might not retest better on that day. Could be attitude related, could be physically, could be not healthy, could be took time off, whatever. But one of the athletes in class, and I think he's in his 50s, and he said, and we went through the workout, and we talked about the weights and the standards and the heights and all that kind of garbage and details, not garbage. And he said, well, what's the master's weight? And I was like, and the weight in this workout is relatively light all the way around. So it's a pretty accessible workout in that sense, especially for people who have been doing CrossFit for a little while. And I said, hey, look, there's no master's weight for this one. And this workout is just as it is. You can scale it or you can do it as written. And I said that not to be a jerk, but I said that because in my head, it was sort of like, I know this person could do everything in this workout as written. They might not want to, and that's totally fine. We're not going to argue that point. But this one, it's like, this is the standard for this workout, and you're going to do it. And when it shows up again, you're not going to do a master's prescribed. If you do a master's prescribed for this one, you're going to scale it. And I think there are other workouts out there as you age up, or for whatever reason, you could call it like a master's RX or master's prescribed, as they say in CrossFit, or you could just say that you're scaling it or modifying it. But this one I just felt really important. It's like, it's just good to have a standard once in a while. And it's okay if you walk away from this one and you say, you know what? I did not beat my score from 5 years ago. And in this particular workout, for me personally, I hit a score in this workout probably 4 or 5 years ago that in my mind, could I ever hit it again? Yes, probably. Would I have to train specifically for that? Yes, definitely. And why I think this is valuable to have a certain standard that doesn't, the goalpost doesn't move relative to your age or your life condition, is because I think those things can act like North Stars, and they can get you back on a certain track if you want to get back on that track. And for no other reason, they just give you feedback. And, I find myself saying that with a lot of workouts, like, I'll never do such and such and such again. But I have had some lifetime PRs, which is really cool recently, which is really cool. And it squashes that horrible, attitude of absolutes, which is I'll never do X, Y, and Z. Okay, so that's the first thing, is I do think it's really valuable to have North Stars. Maybe you're not always following that star, but if you're always moving the goalpost, if you're always choosing a different North Star, I think it's challenging to evaluate yourself. It's challenging to move toward a goal. I get that things change. There is some relativity in life, especially as you age. Losing your black belt. The other reason I think this is important is because having this North Star that doesn't change is because I think it really helps you fully assess and respect, revere, but also fully accept and move on. I don't think I had a black belt in podcasting, but I felt like I had a really good thing going. And I stepped away for 2.5 weeks. Not to say that really good thing doesn't keep going, not to say that doesn't come back. But if I look back at the last 2.5 weeks and I say something like, well, it's okay, my goal in life isn't really to have a podcast, or I just kind of move the goalpost of it, I think it discounts the effort I had put into it up until that point. It discounts the effort you guys have put into listening to it, interacting with me about it. And I also think it discounts, or at least obfuscates, what it takes to get it back. If I just move the goalpost. If I move the goalpost and say, oh, you know what, I don't have to go back to doing them every day, or I don't have to get to 200 episodes, or I don't have to see if I can get more people to listen. That stuff doesn't really matter. Or if I keep changing that, whatever the goalpost is, it changes the amount of, it's like I always get to reduce my effort into it. And I know right now, after taking 2.5 weeks off, I'm probably going to have to put a little extra elbow grease into this damn thing to get it cranking again and interacting with people and finding it interesting, and have to go back and look at what I did and what I talked about so I don't just rerun the first, couple dozen episodes. So again, that's why I think there's a lot of value in having a North Star. I get that some things change. And I think it's good to have those small goals. Like, hey, I'm 50 now and I'm not going to, do Fran or do some deadlift or some back squat. For anyone who doesn't know what Fran is, it's this classic CrossFit benchmark workout. Not a person. But, I'm not going to hit the same thing that I had when I'm 20, but I do have a 50-year-old goal, but it won't be my lifetime best. And I think that's okay. I think it builds a lot of perspective in humanity if you can do both, right? Like you can have a goal for you now, but you can understand that it's not the one that you hit in the past. And because you do need to respect the effort that it got you there, losing your black belt. So you can tell I'm a little rusty. For me, this came, and I say this to Cass, so basically when I was competing in CrossFit, I competed really hard from about 2009 up until about 2017. And even there was a time in 2016, at the end of 2016, when I stepped away from team competition and I took a lot of time off. I basically moved back up to Boston from Tennessee, and I stopped working out and pretty much stopped working out consistently from maybe the freaking, I don't know, I got back up there maybe August? From August until probably January. I really didn't work out. And there's a lot of reasons for this. It doesn't matter right now. It doesn't matter what those reasons were. And then started working out again. Actually had my best performance in the Open, which is the inaugural online competition. I think my best performance in the Open that I had ever had in 2017. And then after that, kind of took some time away again. And for a long time, it was like that back and forth. And the more time I took away and the less consistent I was, the more I saw certain aspects of my fitness slip, especially compared to when I was like essentially doing it full time as a job. And, I would say to Cassandra, like I would do a workout and kind of be like, oh man, but in the past, I'm so close to doing what I could have done a couple of years ago. If only I would work out a little bit more. If I was, and I would use this as an excuse, I would say I would do a workout and I would be like, well, it's not what I got in the past, but I'm really close. Like I'm a little closer than I thought I would be. All it takes is a little more consistency to get there. And so the reason this was a problem, and maybe you've had something like this. It's not just with working out, but the reason this was a problem was because I was letting it be enough that I got close to my past self. And because I got close to my past self, or I was closer than I thought, it was okay that I wasn't committing or being consistent to the working out. And so essentially what I would keep doing is I would keep moving the goalposts, right? So then I would do that and I would take more time off and I'd maybe retest another workout and be like, oh, I'm not going to come in close to my score. And I would maybe get a little bit close to my score, but so I would say, oh, it's okay that I'm not working out that much, or it's okay that I'm not taking care of my body because I'm kind of close to what I used to be. And if I wanted to get to what I used to be, I would just have to do a little extra. I was living in this fantasy land of maybes and what ifs and could I's. And what this ultimately led to is, maybe I don't think it was a couple of years ago or maybe last year, but going through an online competition, and then me finally saying, "Man, I'm really sad that I willingly gave up my black belt in fitness." And I'm not saying I was the best, but for me, I had accomplished a lot, and I had reached a level in the competitive semi-pro exerciser world where I could compete with some of the best. And I realized that as life goes on, I'm not always going to be able to do that at that age, in that cohort, in that group, in that division. But I just, and that's just because time marches on, and time will take some things for you that it will not give back, and you can fight against it like the dying light. And I think there's so much value in that now in retrospect, but I just willingly gave it up. And I think what was a bummer is I didn't even give it up for reasons that now looking back on it, hindsight bias is 2020. I didn't even give it up for reasons that I think were fucking good ones. I gave it up for all the wrong reasons. I gave it up for comfort. I gave it up for guilt. I gave it up for just not knowing who I was or what I wanted to be. And now I try to stay consistent. I try to have mini goals, but I also try on a daily basis to accept I try to accept on a daily basis that I am not who I was when it comes to my fitness. I've carved out some new areas of my fitness for sure. I've done some things in the last couple of years that I never thought I would do as a competitive CrossFitter, especially endurance stuff. And that's the running joke, is like endurance is where all really great competitive CrossFit athletes go to die, which is funny to me. But that's not disrespectful to endurance athletes. It just is, it's just a funny place I never thought I would wind up enjoying it so much. But the point is that I kind of willingly, gave up my black belt in fitness, and not that I couldn't get it back, but at this point, I realized at the time when I was giving up, I was devaluing the work that it took to get there. And now I realize the work that it took to get there and would take to get back to something like that. And so it's made me appreciate every little workout so much more. And there are other things that we all have like this in our life. And I think, even if accomplishment that you have really worked hard for doesn't look, huge in the eyes of others, or maybe you don't really appreciate it at that time, I always think it's valuable to not overemphasize, but just look back at and appreciate the work you put in. You don't have to overvalue it. You don't have to be arrogant about it, but just understand that the work that was put in, because I think, one, it'll help you from arbitrarily moving the goalpost or moving it for a hollow or shallow reason. And it'll help you, I think, stay on the path. So I don't know what the big lessons are there were, but that's what I thought of with this podcast, getting back on the horse. I don't have a black belt in podcasting. I had pretty meager, I feel like I shouldn't use that. That's me going back on my lesson. It's not a meager effort. I did put in a lot of effort into it, even if it hadn't accomplished or achieved tons of podcast success, whatever that means. But I had put in 90 plus days of effort. And there were a couple little spells through that where I really didn't want to do it, and I did it anyway. And it'll take a little bit of work to get back to it. And if there's something you want to put effort into and see results with it, you can't just always keep moving the goalposts. You got to have a North Star that you measure against. Even if eventually you go on to do something else, you got to be real with yourself on that one. And because I know in the past, not being real with myself in terms of what the effort cost me and what it got me, put me in a spot that once it all kind of went away, I was bummed about. And I don't think I want to let that happen here, but also maybe a good lesson. So there we are. We got intro music. We're back on it. Little rambly, 20 minutes. Whoa. Anyway, good to chat to you guys. More tomorrow.